All he wanted was peace, working his own farm, on land he had every right to call his. But to one neighbor, that was unacceptable. Within moments, her voice echoed through a 911 call, painting him as a threat in his own backyard. Blue and red lights cut through the silence, and what started as an ordinary day turned into a showdown fueled by fear and prejudice. She thought she had the upper hand, until he revealed the one thing that would change everything, leaving her stunned and speechless. He had built his life around the land. Acres of green field stretched beyond the horizon, a place he had worked for years with sweat, patience, and pride. Early mornings meant the hum of tractors, the soft neigh of horses, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing this farm was not just dirt and fences. It was a legacy. He wasn't just a farmer. He was a protector of history, the son of men who had worked the same soil, and the dreamer of a future where his children could inherit more than just stories. Neighbors came and went, but the land remained his sanctuary. To him, the lake at the edge of the property wasn't just water. It was a reflection of freedom, a reminder that he had earned his peace. Yet even here, in the silence of the countryside, he wasn't blind to the looks, the whispered words, the way certain people treated him like he didn't belong. He brushed it off. After all, he had bigger things to worry about. But one woman couldn't let it go. To her, his presence was an offense, his success a challenge. And on the day he decided to take his boat out onto the lake, a lake on his own land, her quiet disapproval turned into something far more dangerous. The kind of danger that doesn't come from nature, but from a single call fueled by prejudice. The morning had been calm, the kind that farmers treasure. The sun stretched over the fields as he carried his fishing gear down to the lake. His dogs trailed behind, tails wagging, the breeze carrying nothing but the sound of water lapping against the shore. It felt like a reward for all his hard work, a chance to sit, to breathe, to simply exist on the land he had poured his life into. But peace rarely lasts when prejudice comes knocking. From across the fence line, eyes watched him. HOA Karen, known for patrolling the neighborhood like it was her personal kingdom, stood stiff on the edge of her yard. She had made complaints before, about his tractor being too loud, about the gatherings he hosted after harvest season, even about the color of his fence. But this time, she didn't just mutter. She picked up the phone. Within minutes, the stillness of the countryside was broken by sirens. He looked up from his chair on the dock, confused at first, then tense as two squad cars came roaring down the gravel road leading to his farm. His dog stiffened. He stayed seated, calm but cautious, as the car screeched to a stop, kicking up clouds of dust. Karen stormed forward, waving her arms dramatically, pointing toward him like he was a criminal caught in the act. Her voice was sharp, carrying over the water. Accusations of trespassing, of illegal use of the lake, of being somewhere he didn't belong. The officers exchanged looks, their posture already hardening as they stepped toward him. He knew the danger. He had seen this story play out before. Unarmed black men mistaken for threats, ordinary moments twisted into confrontations. His heartbeat slowed, controlled, as if bracing for impact. Every step the officers took toward him carried the weight of history. And Karen, she watched with satisfaction, convinced she had done the right thing, convinced that her words, her fear, her lies would be enough to strip him of his dignity, if not his freedom. But what none of them knew, what would soon turn this encounter upside down, was that the man sitting calmly by the lake wasn't just a farmer. He carried an authority far greater than any of them expected. The officers advanced, their boots crunching on the gravel, eyes narrowing as if they had already decided he didn't belong. Karen's shrill voice rang out, feeding their suspicions with every exaggerated word. He's trespassing. He's dangerous. He's not supposed to be here. One officer's hand hovered near his holster. The other squared his shoulders, their body language screaming confrontation. The man stayed seated, his hands resting calmly on his knees, though every nerve inside him braced for what could happen next. He had read the headlines, heard the stories. He knew how quickly things could spiral, How a calm morning could turn into tragedy with one wrong assumption. "Stand up." Slowly, one officer barked. His voice carried that sharp edge of command, leaving no room for hesitation. The air grew heavier. Even the dog sensed the shift, growling low by his side. He rose, steady, his gaze unflinching. Karen smirked from behind the officers, already savoring the downfall she believed she had engineered. She thought this was the moment he would be dragged away, humiliated, stripped of authority. But then, he reached inside his jacket. Gasps broke out from the crowd of onlookers who had begun to gather at the commotion. For a split second, tension spiked. Every muscle in the officer's body coiled. And then he pulled out the unmistakable leather case. The badge. The sun caught its surface as he held it up, calm but unshakable. A symbol of law, of authority, of power that outranked the very men who had come to question him. The officers froze. Karen's smirk collapsed into stunned silence. The entire scene flipped in an instant. What had been building toward a dangerous confrontation now revealed a shocking truth. The man they had cornered was no ordinary farmer. He was a federal agent. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. The officers shifted uncomfortably, their authority stripped away in an instant. Karen's face went pale, her mouth opening, but no words coming out. The badge gleamed in the light as he calmly slid it back into his pocket, never breaking eye contact. He didn't shout. He didn't gloat. He simply picked up his fishing rod, leaned back in his chair, and let the weight of the moment speak for itself. The very ground Karen thought she controlled now felt like quicksand beneath her. The officers muttered apologies, their tone suddenly careful, deferential. Karen tried to backpedal, insisting she was just looking out for the neighborhood. But her excuses fell flat against the truth. She had called the police to humiliate a man she thought was powerless. Instead, she had exposed her own prejudice in front of everyone. As the crowd began to disperse, whispers filled the air, about the injustice, about the courage, about how quickly judgment had turned into humiliation. He remained steady, unshaken, a picture of quiet strength. For him, this wasn't just about proving who he was. It was about showing that no matter how loudly ignorance screamed, dignity didn't need to shout back. And as the lake rippled behind him, he cast his line once more, unbothered, undefeated, and undeniably in control.